Okay, welcome to the Intercourse Show. I am your host, Mr. B. I am joined by a lot of lovely people tonight. I have the beautiful Amber, I have the beautiful Honey, the beautiful Gabby, the beautiful S Squared, Sky Squared. I have my man Terrence also up in the building. And tonight we are talking about marriage in the modern day. What the main question that I am asking the panel today is, do y'all feel that marriage means the same thing it does today that it meant yesterday? Or is it a come up for women? Or is it, you know what I'm saying, like something that is mutually beneficial for both parties? Like, I just want to understand y'all perspective of marriage as it goes. And, I think, Amber, you had something to add on this before we roll the tape. I would love to hear your point of view about what your views are on marriage, and then we'll kind of bounce around to get people's perspective on it.
So you want to hear before the clip?
Yeah, before the clip. Yeah, go ahead.
So we were debating about it, and I think the institution of marriage is still beautiful. I think the institution of marriage now is should be more partnership based. Um, I believe the opposition was you think it's more of a come up for women, but I really think the institution of marriage in total is a come up for men. But in total, I don't think it's a bad thing to get married, to partner up, to bring your wealth together, especially if you're, both working on wonderful things and you both have assets and you bring it together. I
Mm-hmm.
think marriage is, and like I said, I don't think it's just a come up. Women, you're looking at women like, oh, it's a come up for us, but like I told you earlier, most women come to the table with their own assets. So to me, marriage would be a more fruitful union nowadays. That's what I think.
Okay. All right. Okay. Any other viewpoints on that? Because my initial view, as we started to have this conversation, and I know y'all may have a different point, but a lot of men, especially in what they call the red pill community, a lot of men now take the position that marriage is not beneficial for a man, especially in the modern day, because I don't feel that a lot of people are marrying each other for the right reasons. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like marriage has become something that really kind of gives one gender most of the upside, especially because if that marriage goes to the left, right, who stands to lose more? Does the man or does the woman stand to lose more? You know what I'm saying? Most of the time, not only is this man losing half of everything he's got financially, you know what I'm saying? At which point, the person he married is gaining the other half, you know what I mean? But also, that man loses any sort of incentive with children, you know what I mean? He tends not to be viewed as a person who's best fit to have the children. So he doesn't have an angle from that standpoint. And then on top of it, you have things like alimony. I don't know too many situations where a woman is paying a man alimony on any occasion. You know what I'm saying? Even if she's married or even if she's employed, gainfully employed or not, most of the time, and I'd say majority of the time, most men tend to have to carry the weight, the burden of supplying for that person, even while they're in another relationship and doing their own thing. Depending on how long that person has been married, you find that those people are ultimately the ones who get the upside. And then on the flip side to that, you have things like child support and all these other factors that plays a part. So the financial burden as it pertains to a man is very different. And if you look at how marriage is portrayed nowadays anyway on social media or some of these sites, what you'll find is that, marriage is viewed as, like a come up. You know what I'm saying? Like, if a female who's considered to be a very attractive female, if she can find herself a dude who's got it like that, she don't even really got to stick it out with that man. You could see by the increases of divorce and some of these things that marriage ultimately tends to hurt men more than it hurts women if that marriage just dissolves. So for that reason, I would question the values of marriage in the days of my parents or even some of y'all grandparents meant different things. Society saw it differently, right? So society saw it more along the lines of, hey, we are both trying to honor God. And in that quest to honor God, we are going to serve each other. So I'm not looking for reasons to break up the relationship. I'm not looking for reasons to leave because there wasn't this incentive called no fault divorce that allows a person to decide that they're going to dissolve the marriage with no penalty to themselves and walk away from the relationship, right? With one person having the bigger share of the burden, financial burden, to sustain and protect the other person. So for that reason, I'm saying if you take away that value system within marriage where somebody's not doing it for a religious reason, they're not saying, hey, I'm trying to honor God in my marriage. I want to make sure that I'm pleasing God. That's why I'm submitting to my husband. That's why we're going to find ways to work things out. If you take that element out of it and we're just looking at marriage in the secular form in terms of how it's portrayed in the secular form, where we watching people on billboards and different magazines and how they're married today. Brad Pitt is married to Jennifer Aniston, and then the next day he's married to Angelina Jolie, and then the next day she's married to the next person. And it's just like this game where people are married for the sake of being married, but there's no real reason. There's nothing that actually grounds them in the marriage. So now you start to ask yourself, well, if that foundational piece is not there, if you're not married for a traditional religious reason, if you don't value the marriage, if even in our community we're not holding each other to that marital standard, then really does it hold the same value that it did 50 years ago when our parents and grandparents was getting married? You know what I'm saying? Or is it now something that a man blindly walks into, you know what I'm saying, because Disneyland and all these different movies and it says you're supposed to get married, and there's this perception of it, but in actuality, the benefits aren't equally, there. It's not a good business deal from the standpoint of a man making that decision to go into it. I think there's a lot of conversation on the side of men to say that, yo, this is like, you got to buyer beware with this particular decision, because unless y'all are doing it for the right reasons and you have similar values that's going to keep you in that marriage, then a lot of times you walking into a situation as just a bad deal, it's just a bad contract. So that's sort of the conversation that we had, and I thought it'd be interesting to get younger people's perspective on it. Like, how do y'all view marriage today? If you're a female, do you view it from the standpoint of just saying, well, yeah, like, we're going into it for the right reasons, but then there's a bunch of TikTok streams and YouTube streams and, what I mean, people online that's like, yo, this is how you come up, you know what I mean, where they view it as like a scheme or some shit. Like, you can just get off on somebody who's just unsuspecting and then run off with all his shit. You know what I'm saying? Or is it something that is still viewed as like, no, like, if I'm going to get married, I now know what I need to do to become a wife. And is there enough emphasis being put on people who want to get married? Are they taking the steps to know how to serve their prospective husbands in that marriage as a wife? Or is everyone just trying to get married to be married? You know what I'm saying? In the same fashion, if a man's marrying a woman, is he taking the similar steps to know, how do I serve her? How do I, tend to her? So that conversation, I feel like we're not having enough of. And that's why I have everyone coming on board here to have this conversation. All right. So that was me being extremely long winded, but I want to open it up to the panel to get y'all take, even before we introduce any controversial videos that might get y'all to go crazy on me. But you know what I'm saying? I definitely want to get everybody's take. So, if anybody wants to, chime in based on what I've said to kind of bring more clarity, feel free to let me know and I'll buzz you in.
I can say something.
Yeah. Do your thing, honey.
With everything that you just said, my big question to everyone is, do we really think that men propose blindly? And if he is proposing blindly, is that her fault?
Okay.
That's a good question.
Is that a rhetorical question, or is that like one that you want everybody to kind of weigh in on?
That's a question that I want answered, because after Based off of everything you just said, it's as if the man don't know that he's getting married, that she's tricking him into this union that majority of the time he asks for because he asks for her hand in marriage. Most men propose to women. We say yes.
Mm-hmm.
So is it fair to say that he don't know what he getting himself into?
But let me say this though: how many men propose to women because they just want to be married that badly?
And that's a personal choice to not vet.
I mean, let's really think about it. Most of the time that a lot of dudes get married or choose to get married is because they feel pressured into it. Am I lying, Terrence? Like you, the other dude up on this platform, do you feel like what I'm saying is out of play? It's either a situation where you was dealing with a female, you know what I'm saying, or she got, maybe she got pregnant or whatever during the course of y'all dealing with each other, and the family is putting pressure on the two of y'all to form a matrimony to come together so that you guys can have a foundation for your children. Or, you know what I'm saying, it's a situation where maybe the dude's been dealing with the girl for some time, and she pressuring him like, yo, dude, I can't be wasting my good years with you, so you got to let me know what we doing or else I'm out of here. So he's, what I'm saying, gonna move on that accord just based on the pressure not to be in the situation. That's what I know most of the time from just conversations I've had. But a lot of times it's not like, I don't ever have conversation with guys who's like, I dream of getting married like by this age. I've never had a conversation with a guy who was dreaming of getting married ever, not one time. Right? But if you ask a woman, like, she's got that dream, like, hey, here's how my wedding's gonna be, here's what I'm gonna do. Like, they've been dreaming about this because it's something that's programmed into you from the very beginning. So I don't think men is coming to that conclusion on their own where they're like, yo, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just getting married just on off rep. I'm just getting married or whatever, and it is what it is. Like, most of the time, when dudes are getting married, it's because the female they dealing with is giving them that pressure. Y'all disagree?
Then leave.
What that mean?
If he don't want marriage, he don't have to get married.
Okay, let's first start with this. Do you agree or disagree that most men are not dreaming about getting married or friend?
I actually disagree because I've talked to many men who wants a wife, who wants to get married, who wants to settle down, who wants to have all the crazy things. I've actually talked to men who told me how they would prefer their wedding to go, who dream of the whole proposal and making a girl feel special. I've talked to many men.
Okay. And the men you talk to, right? You feel like that represents the majority of men? Or are they
No,
like
but I
few and far
can't.
between?
No, they're not few and far between. It's actually a lot of them.
Okay.
There are a lot of men out here who wants to settle down, who wants to be with one female for the rest of their life. It's just a matter of finding that female. Are they frustrated as hell in finding them? Absolutely, because the dating world suck. But they
Okay.
still want it.
All right. So you're saying it doesn't represent the majority of men though.
I did not say it does not represent the majority of men. I'm
So
going to
talk
say
to
that
me in
it's
generalities.
not it's not far in between in the sense of it's one in a million. It's a bit more than that.
Okay.
What's
So
good,
talk
bro?
to me. Talk to me.
Same way,
Okay with Valerie.
same way I can say that not all women dream of getting married.
Same way you can say that not all women dream of getting married.
Mhm. It's probably about the same amount, same statistics.
So hold on. So let's take it to the panel. I'm gonna go across the board and ask every person if they believe that the majority of men, at the same rate that women want to get married. So, in your opinion, honey, you believe that the majority, i.e., 51% of the overall population of men.
That's not what I said.
No, I'm asking. That's the specific question I'm asking. Do
I'm
you?
not going to say 51%, but I'm not going to say 1% either. It's
No,
more than
I'm.
1%.
It's
You
more than
said
one.
far in between. It's not that far in between. Now, would I say 50, 60%? Probably not.
What
But I will
percentage would
say
you say?
maybe
Just give
about
me an answer.
35,
About
a random
35.
ass
Okay.
number.
Okay. So 35. So you're saying of the overall collection of men, at least one third of them want to get married.
Possibly, yeah.
Do you believe that the rate of women that want to get married is 1/3, or is it the majority of women?
I would say probably want to get married that I've talked to, depending on the age range, women in general, because there's more women in the world than men. I would say probably about 50%.
About 50%.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so already there's a 15% disparity between the amount of women who want to get married versus the amount of men who want to get married, just by your estimation. All right, we'll
Mm-hmm.
go across the board. Amber, what do you think? What do you think those numbers are?
I honestly think that majority of men do not desire to get married in the
Mm-hmm.
same way that women desire to be married. I think that they think about it, but it's not the same. I think women, we do, Disney has really messed us up in terms of thinking about what's realistic and what's not. You know, we're kind of groomed as girls to want that whole
Mm-hmm.
fairy tale thing that doesn't exist. But boys, on the other hand, are conditioned and socialized to date as many women as possible before marriage. They're told at a certain point when they want to get successful that they should get married and start a family. But I don't think that most men really, they're really not like, yeah,
Pressed.
let me go find somebody to marry tomorrow. Because it's not a decision that you can take lightly. I do think that majority of men who are in relationships that dissolve, they wish they knew more before they got married. So I would say, but a lot of people, but to be honest, anybody that decides to get married, there are just things that you're just not going to know until you're actually in it. One thing
That's
you
true.
said, one thing you said that was interesting was that marriage doesn't benefit the man in the event that the marriage dissolves. But what's interesting is, okay, traditionally, right, if someone gets married, the husband is taking on this woman forever. He's taking her on
The
forever to
response
take
time
care
was
of
pretty
her.
quick when we first got
So
here. Like they
Mm-hmm.
took us in, they asked the questions,
if
just came back out.
Go ahead.
hold the values of marriage, if we're supposed to uphold the traditional values of marriage, that means that that man is going to take care of this woman forever. And then in the event that he dies, prayerfully, a male family member of his will care for this widowed person. But now people are leaving their relationships, and I think the fact that men may have to, pay alimonies and child supports and stuff like that, it's a way to continue to take care of the woman. It's a way to kind of keep the tradition of still caring for a person, because you're not dead if you get a divorce, whereas in that case, the widower cannot receive any type of care monetarily or physically. So it's you want tradition in one sense, but then in your absence, you don't want tradition.
Can
Does
I
that make sense
interject
to me?
on this one point, if you don't mind, Amber? You brought up a good point, and I do agree with you that that there are more men who are not in favor of being married versus women who are in favor of being married. I guess to rebuttal what you said as far as like the alimony thing, majority of the divorces that are happening in America are initiated by the woman. So does that mean that she deserves the alimony if she's the one who quote unquote is cutting off her traditional source in a sense? Um,
So
and two, on top of that,
that's a good question.
yeah, um, that's one. And then number two, it's also a thing of the idea of marriage is completely different nowadays. Now, as far as like Honey, you were stating earlier, the dating scene sucks because you have people who are looking for instant gratification with low emotional intelligence. And so
Mm-hmm.
when you mix those two together, you're going to get nothing but a cluster that's just waiting to happen. So I think the standards are different because, again, you're dealing with people who are emotionally immature, who don't understand, hey, there are certain things that you have to work on. People think, oh, it's my half, my other half, when marriage is really two wholes, like two whole people coming together to create a union. It's not just, oh, this half, because that means there's still things that are missing. Yeah, you complement each other, but I think marriage is different because mindset is different about the entire thing. That's why most people, that's why there's a good amount of people, whether red pill or most of the time it's red pill, they say a lot of women go for the day of marriage versus the lifetime of marriage. And that's why most men, when they're not in favor of marriage, because they are thinking about lifetime of marriage versus just, oh, this is just the day of my wedding. So that's it.
Okay, Gabby, what do you think? Are you on mute? I can't hear you.
I would say I think majority of women I know they want to get married. I don't know what number I would say men. I have some men that I know that, when they do find what they're looking for, they would get married, and then some who are just kind of like, nope, I'm good. I'd rather just stay single and kind of live my life. So men are kind of different, but I know a lot of the females that I know, they really do want that.
All right. Terrence, what do you think? Oh, hold on. I think I got you muted. Let me unmute you. I got it, Terrence. You good? What do you think?
You can hear me, bro? Yeah, but I can't too much. I'm at the situation right now. Yeah, I'm a tune it. I'm waiting on to get back to the crib. I should be back to the crib. I
Okay,
can't
no
speak too
problem.
much.
It's all good. Johnny, what do you think? You can hop in.
I don't know. I didn't know what the question was. I have to late.
The question is, do you believe that marriage is the same thing that it used to be traditionally in the past? Or has marriage changed somewhat? Meaning, does it mean the same thing to both parties, men and women, that it meant back in the days? Or is marriage somewhat of a come up for women more so than it is for men? Meaning, is there more benefit and upside for a woman to get married than it is for a man to get married today? Because, if that marriage dissolves, is the man liable to lose more than the woman is, what I'm saying, if that relationship doesn't work out. And so what I've been doing is asking the panel, what do y'all think? You know what I'm saying? Do you believe that there's an overwhelming amount of men who is gun-ho to get married? Or is it more women who are really, 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 really desiring to get married? And a lot of times men feel pressured into just marrying the woman, not so much because they see a huge upside, right? But mainly because out of peer pressure to do it. Or is it a situation where you feel like, no, it is an equal amount and there are mutual benefits to it that both benefit the man and the woman? Like, what's your thoughts?
Well, a loaded question.
It is.
Well, I'll answer one part of the question because there was a couple of moving parts there. But in terms of who does it benefit more, it really all depends on what metric you're talking about in terms of benefit. Mm-hmm. Socially, it benefits women way more than it benefits men. Men don't particularly care to get married for the social aspect of status. You know what I mean? Like, mm-hmm. Men don't get married as a status point, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that's been true historically. Women have the pressures of society on them and the pressures of their tradition, whatever culture they grew up in, to get married, because it's like, if you're not married by the age of whatever age we say a woman should be married by, what are you doing with your life? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Historically, that's been sort of the narrative, not the narrative, but like the understanding of a woman's role in marriage. Like, you have to get married because the man is the person who brings value to your life. Historically, that's how it's been. Mm-hmm. Now, of course, we know that, like, a man doesn't bring sole value to the woman's life. She has her own value that she brings to the table too.
Yeah.
But I think it's the same nowadays as it was back then. I think some things never change. That socially, it's more important for women to get married than men. A man could not be married until he's 50, no one would bat an eye. You know what I mean? Like, he was fine by himself until, he got married. Now, it benefits the man to get married so that he has some, like, why did God make Eve for Adam? You know what
Absolutely.
I'm saying? Like he knew that the man needed the woman.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Like he's not complete without her. So you could be a 50-year-old bachelor or a 60-year-old bachelor, and if you're not married, it's like you've done all these great things, but
you don't have a family. You don't have a legacy.
You don't have a family to leave it behind. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Something missing in that.
I'm not saying
so I think emotionally it means more to a man if he's not married. Now, it may not seem like that on the surface because we're able to hide our emotions so well. But I think that, you know, a man does want companionship throughout his life, just like women do. You see what I'm saying? But we want it for different reasons.
But my question to you is, do you feel that marriage today means the same thing that it meant back then 50 years ago when our grandparents was getting married? Meaning, are people going into marriage now to serve each other? Are they going into marriage for the right reasons? You feel what I'm saying? Like, based on what I've been seeing, especially how dating has been in today's modern day, I don't believe that people are going into a marriage for the right reasons. I believe like they're going in for different reasons, not necessarily.
But it's all based on the context of time, though, because back then marriage wasn't. If we're talking about like prehistoric days, you know what I mean, like Jesus days, marriage wasn't about love. It was, I'm marrying my daughter off to you because you can provide for her. You're going to be the new father of the household. You see what I'm saying? Like I need you to carry on what I left off. That's why the father walks the daughter down the aisle. He's marrying his daughter off to the next man who's going to take care of her. She didn't really have a say in that relationship. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that was true all the way up until like the 1800s. You know what I mean? Like people didn't really start marrying for love. You see what I'm saying? So nowadays, yeah, I think marriage is a bit different in terms in the way that we marry for like, you know, a lifetime partnership. We don't just marry because, you know, the whole aspect of a man providing for a woman, that's still there. Like women want a man to provide for them. But there's a, you know, how do I say this? The aspect of love is in there. Like there's a whole new ingredient in today's reasons for marriage. And I don't think that's the same as being married today is much different than it meant back then. You see what I'm saying? That you're trying to plan out a life with someone instead of just figuring it out along the way.
So you think you think it's different than how it was back then. So my question is, people
marry on the pretense that they love someone today. Back then, people didn't marry on the pretense
they married for duty.
Someone. They married you because that's what they were supposed to do. And I'll learn to love you along the way. You see what I'm saying?
Okay.
We think we love someone today, so we marry them, and then 5 years, 10 years, 20 years later, we find out that we've grown apart and we don't love each other the same. That wasn't so true.
That wasn't so true back then. Okay. All right. That's a point of view. What do y'all think about that? I think
that was Jonathan, right? That said that?
That was Jonathan that said that, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Jonathan. And this is what I was trying to say earlier, as far as like the definition of love is completely different. You know, yesterday I went downtown and I happened to run across a couple. It was an older couple. I was like, hey, you know, you guys are adorable. You know, how long they were like, oh, we've been married for 47 years. I said, oh, do you guys have any secrets or anything else like that? They're like, yeah, compromise. That's all they said. All they said was compromise. And I asked them like to elaborate a little bit. They're like, nowadays marriage is, you know, what can you give me instead of, okay, what can we do for the benefit of both of us? There are going to be days where you're not going to like your spouse. There are going to be days where you feel like you're out of love for your spouse. But at the end of the day, it's you know, we made a commitment to be together, to be together, to be together. Through thick and thin, when you make those vows in front of God and everyone else around you, it's not something, as Amber said earlier, it's not something to be taken lightly. It's not, okay, hey, I love you today, but hey, you know what? I don't really love you now. So give me the paper so we can sign because I'm sick of you. It's during those days when I'm mad at you, you know what? I'm still going to serve you. I'm still going to make sure that you're good at the end of the day. And they also said something about having a spirit of forgiveness. Holding bitterness and resentment and things like that. Again, Jonathan kind of pointed out a little bit. Marriage has, as time has progressed, the idea of marriage has definitely change to whatever is marketable for society. And I feel like people will get this instant gratification thing based off of social media and everything else. And if it's not instant gratification, then you know what, just forget it. I don't want it anymore. So
Mhm.
that's it.
Okay, so do you guys think that it's a come up then? Is it a come up? Is marriage today a come up for women? Meaning, like, are the motives that a lot of women have going into marriage one to literally make the marriage work? Because if we're looking at the statistics, and that's one of the things Kevin Samuels will get himself in trouble for, is he would like to bring up facts and statistics. So one of the statistics that he would cite would be one where the divorce rate has gone up in part because of the no fault marriage. 80% of divorces are initiated by women who are in their marriage. Now, some of those divorces have legitimate reasons, like if a man's beating you and doing something out of pocket and you're going into a situation where it's a life and death, whether you make it out of there, I totally understand. You got to get up out of that relationship. You got to get up out of that situation. But a lot of times, women are just, you know what I'm saying, leaving their marriage. And I don't believe that is the mindset that was taken back then. And I also don't believe that that is the intended purpose that God designed when he created the institution of marriage. I didn't believe that we were supposed to so loosely, you know what I'm saying, like break our vows just because we don't feel like we're in love today. You know what I mean? And I feel like today, in part because of no fault divorce, and people are able to just say, well, I'm not happy with you, or this is not what I thought it would be. But technically your vow says through thickness, you know what I mean, through good times, bad times, you know what I mean, you're supposed to stick it out. And the fact that 80% of the divorces are initiated by women, that is not a small coincidence. So what I'm saying is the fact that that's happening, that is an indicator that marriage is not valued the same, meaning people don't make it as a lifetime vow when they make it today than they did back in the days. And so if you're going into a situation where there's more of an incentive for you to be divorced than there is for you to stay in the marriage, it's a come up for a woman more so than it is for a man, because at the end, the person who's going to be left having to pay, the person who's going to be left with the burden, the emotional strain, most of the time tends to be the man. Most of the time. You know what I'm saying? So if that's the scenario, and I don't know if y'all see it like that. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if women tend to see it the way that I'm indicating that it
I
is.
have a question.
Go ahead.
So you said that it's an incentive for women, as if when women get married, we don't make compromises, we don't sacrifice things, and we don't contribute. Are you implying that we get divorced solely because we want the money and not the person?
Well, I'm gonna create that. I'm gonna ask y'all the question. I am not implying that y'all get divorced solely because you want the money, but I think the money is a factor in why you get divorced. If you are a woman and you can get alimony while you date the next man, and the last man has to pay for your living standards, if you are a woman and you can leverage your children, and that's not saying any of you guys are doing that, but there are women who are out there doing that. They're leveraging the children, they're weaponizing the children. The man can't see the children, you know what I'm saying? And they're going at that rate. And then there's, child support is another incentive where the state's now a third party in your relationship. You know what I'm saying? I think there's more of an incentive for women to break their marriage than there is for men to, because a man already knows. That's why they say it's cheaper to keep her. Because, bruh, if I walk away from this, you know what I'm saying, I'm now going to be liable for her, depending on how long I've been married, for her livelihood via alimony. I'm going to have to pay for the children. I'm going to lose half of everything I got. And that hits me harder. So men will they will coin the phrase, it's cheaper to keep her, for that very reason. So when a woman walks away from it, the incentives are not any different. Like for them, it's like, oh, I'm out of this relationship and I get to, I get to leave with more than I came in with most of the time.
Okay, well, I'm gonna challenge Kevin Samuel's percentage because the Psychology Today article that I just pulled up.
I think Amber got disconnected. Go ahead, honey. Did you have something else you wanted to say? Can you guys hear me? You can hear me. Okay.
Yeah,
Amber
we can
was.
hear you.
Just I can't hear Honey. She like cut out right in the middle. I can hear you. I just can't hear Honey.
I was just saying that, for most women, and I say most women, when you take away the TikTok age, we can't use them as a majority. They're
Hmm.
not the majority. Majority of women over the age of 30, they're not getting married just because most of them already have things to offer. So it's not like they're coming into it completely empty handed.
Hmm.
So when you say that they're leaving with more than what they came into it with, are they? Because most of the time they have kids that even if you split custody, majority of the weight of the children almost always statistically falls on the female. Not because she wants to all the time.
Mm, okay.
So
Go ahead.
I, I'm just trying to figure out, exactly where the bulk of the question is. If it's really that women just divorce men for the money, and how that really benefits us, because at the end of the day, it still takes money to live.
No, I guess my.
Sometimes it's better to just stay in the relationship because then you get the benefits of everything. You split the mortgage, you split this, you split that. So the TikTok age, I see what you're talking about. Yes, they are glorifying getting
Get in
pregnant
the
by a
bag.
baller.
Get in the bag. Like this. That's why I'm asking you. Like
But the
just as an
TikTok age is a
observation.
majority of women, though. You can't use
I
that
would
as a majority.
I would slightly disagree to say it's not just the TikTok age. You have women like Superhead. You have other women that are like 30
From
and
five
up that have
generations. Yeah.
actual like books, how to scam so and so, how to make a come up on so and so. I don't think it's just a particular age group that says, "Oh, this is how you get the bag." I think there's a general across the board group of women that have decided, okay, if we're getting ready to be in this corner, they treat it like a business plan.
Yes, I
Like,
agree
and
to
I,
that.
yeah,
So it's a come
But
up.
I would not say that that's a majority, that represent the majority. Just like he just said, what I said about the men didn't represent the majority. Does that really represent the majority of women?
Go ahead,
Can I?
Scott.
Can I? Oh, go ahead,
You got
Scott.
it.
go ahead, Amber.
Okay, I think marriage was supposed to be a come up. Marriage, when you brought your finances together or the dowry was paid, that was the point. The point was to come up. But because generation after generation, there's nothing there, no one has generational wealth. What you've seen happen is that women have, hey baby, go to bed. Women have figured out, okay, well, I still want marriage because it will be a come up. It's hypergamy, but there are also gold diggers. So you have women that do want to be married for the security of it, and then you do have women that are gold diggers. However, in our community specifically, women are just automatically looked at as gold diggers or looking for a come up in a negative way if they want someone that have more resources than the next.
Hmm.
And I don't get why that is. I don't understand why that is. They're saying it's an error. It might kick me out again, but I'm just trying to talk until it does. I don't think that, like Sky, when you were just mentioning like Superhead, yo, sis was just a whole. thought box. I think she was just getting off on the fact that all of these celebrities wanted her body because she wasn't trying to secure anything and marry anything. And, she was, sleeping on people's couch and still going and getting bust down. To me, you're not living. If you're doing all of that, you might as well be getting paid for it. But then you have women like who's a good example that I could use. These are older women too. A lot of people said a lot of like I don't know, I can't think of anybody right now, but a lot of people said that like, oh, Evelyn Lozada. A lot of people, look at her like, oh, she, she's pretty. She like men in a certain caliber. They have a certain status. They have a certain bank account status. But she's not looked at as a gold digger, and she would be a perfect example to me, in my opinion, of what a gold digger looks like.
She looks
But she
exactly
doesn't get
like one.
But she
I mean,
doesn't get the title of
her
one. But
actions,
she never gets the
yes.
title of one. She never gets the title of one. That's what I find interesting. She doesn't get the title of a gold digger, but she's exactly what a gold digger is. There's no way she's in love with all of these guys that she's found herself with. She's not in love with all of them. Ain't no way. She's looking for security and a check, and that's it. So yes, I do think that when you are in a marriage, yes, you want to come up. You want to bring your resources together and or build together. But I don't understand why men are uh, if the marriage dissolves, you want alimony and this, that, and the third. But just like Honey said, you still need money to live, even if we're not together. And if I have your children, technically, you are responsible for me and them until another man decides to take us on. Technically.
So I have a question on this because this actually has happened. You guys know Robert
Mhm.
De Niro, of course, Goodfellas, all that anyway. So his first wife, they have children, this, that, and the third. They divorced. They were married for a good amount of years, 20 years, whatever, how many years it is. Now that they're divorced, he's still like over 50 now. At her grown age, he still has to pay her money. Keep in mind, he still has to pay her money until she marries again. She's been dating a few other men, but she's been dating this one particular man for over 3 years. And to this day, she still does not plan on marrying that boyfriend because she knows that that will financially cut her off from Robert De
Absolutely.
Niro. So
Mhm.
where do you draw the line then?
Well, in the state of Virginia, you can challenge that. There, I see a lot of stuff. You can go to court if you have knowledge that she has a boyfriend and that person is with her. If they go on vacation together and they put it on Facebook, if the children see somebody sleeping the night at mama house, seriously, that man who's paying alimony can go to court, show the judge the evidence, and it will be done. It will be done for. There are things put in place to protect men. You just have to kind of know that it's there.
Let's
But
be
that's
honest.
I think that's where B is coming from. Please correct me if I'm wrong. That's where B, I feel like that's where he's coming from though. With men
Mhm.
who have got into a marriage, and honey, I will agree with you. Men are not unknowingly going into marriage. They are understanding, hey, if I'm proposing to this person, this is what I signed up for. But I feel like some, like you said, Amber, some people don't realize who they're marrying until they've been in that marriage. And I think, as Honey stated before, you need to check your vetting process. So if you have men who think, okay, hey, me and this girl are in love, this and the third, and she comes to me and she initiates the divorce, you're pretty much over here ass out, not knowing, okay, how am I supposed to protect myself? You're pretty much left in the dust. And I mean, we can go ahead and, say, oh, this is about the state of Virginia, but we're just talking in general across the board because we can say a good portion of our listeners maybe do live in Virginia, maybe they don't. So it's a thing of, okay, how are people supposed to protect themselves?
It's true. So my view is this. I understand in general, there's these general benefits of marriage. Like, I think most men, when they love a woman, they absolutely want to provide her that security and they absolutely want to be there for her. You know what I mean? I don't think men are ill intent people who just want to necessarily use a woman and not necessarily provide her that assurance. Because most men, if they want to build a family, they want to have something, they want that. But I do believe that Men nowadays are being taught to be more cautious about that decision because marriage is not valued the same way it was valued in the days of their grandparents. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I'm looking at these Black demographic statistics that I just pulled up, you can go to blackdemographics.com, and all I did was type in marriage statistics in the Black community, and this is one of the sites that came up, and it lists out the marriage statistics by race, right? It says that in the Black community, 30% of the people are married, and they have amongst the highest divorce percentages of about 12%, increase in divorce over a span of time. And 50% of them are never married. In the Hispanic community is 43%, in the white community is 52%, in the Asian community is 58%, right? So you're taking a look to see, or already in our communities, marriage is declining, it seems, right? And when you compare it to other races, right, it's drastically low. I mean, compared the lowest being 30% to the highest of 58%, that's a 28% gap that exists. And if you look at the Asian communities within the US, you don't see a lot of crime. You don't see a lot of the disorderly things that happens as a result of broken families, right? Because they have more of a support system in play that allows them to be able to provide the environment for their children to grow up in. In our situation, we can't seem to work it out where we're getting married and we're staying together, right? And I can't just say that the majority of men are out here beating these women and doing all these crazy things. A lot of times we are dissolving our marriages because we're not happy. Oh, I'm no longer happy with Joe. I'm no longer happy with Jamal. The sex wasn't that great, or whatever the case, right? And the marriage is dissolved. And then where it's our in our community, it's very contentious, right? You have a situation where we're not exactly co-parenting well. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of times there's conflict. And because of conflict, it creates an industry for people to manipulate that within us. And so that's why I have to ask the bigger question: does marriage mean the same? Because if you take, this is a statistics that myself and Terrence and Jonathan had talked about. Back in the days pre desegregation, we were married at a much higher rate. Our communities was a bit more intact and was actually a bit more productive. And I remember kind of scolding those boys when they brought that point up to me, like, oh, what are you trying to say? But if I looked at the numbers, that was the case, right? And nowadays, you have a situation where women tend to be a bit more liberal. There's now these no-fault marriages, no-fault divorces that allows a woman to break those vows and break that commitment without penalty, right? And they have the added assurance of alimony or child support or whatever the case may be, so they don't necessarily have to stay in the relationship and work it out. And so now, if you have all these added incentives for your marriage not to work, the question then becomes, well, is it a come up? Like, are you, especially with what's going on in TikTok? A lot of what's being on TikTok is messages that got passed down to those generation of girls that led them to believe that, hey, you know what I'm saying? Like, be independent, do for yourself. You don't need him. Great. You don't need him. Now you're doing it on your own. Or if you get in a relationship, you're not incentivized to stay and work out that relationship, because every relationship is going to require some compromise. The relationship is meant to edify you and change you and mold you to consider other people other than yourself, right? But if we don't stay in a relationship long enough to see those things take place, that's not in line with what I believe God meant when he developed the institution of marriage. I believe when the institution of marriage was established, it was really established for two people to learn to grow together and to work together and to compromise. Not everyone's going to win, but through staying through that relationship 20, 30 years in, you'll be able to see the fruits of that, of the sacrifices you've made. A lot of times, I think what the average time frame is with, if you can get past 5 years in your marriage without getting divorced, or 10 years, you're like, it's rare. a lot of people are getting divorced within that time frame. And now you see, especially within the Black community, there is more people who are like they quick to have a baby outside of marriage because they no longer value it the same way. Whereas in before, that would be unthinkable.
So my question is, I'm sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, Amber.
Oh, no, no. Ask your question.
My question is we're if we are not getting married,
Mm-hmm.
we are choosing to have children outside of marriage. How is the narrative that majority of us see marriage as the come up when majority of us is not going after it?
You're saying if you're not getting married, how is it you see as a come up? No, I just
From the
think,
statistics that you just said,
yep,
Black people aren't getting married.
they're not. But so it's not that they don't want to.
But they're not.
No, the statistics I told you is that I think it's 1 in 4 Black women are getting married based on the
What?
statistics. 1 in 4 Black women, which means now only 1 in 4 of you guys are getting married. Of the 1 in 4 that get married, 80% of the divorces that come within the Black community are initiated by the Black women. And now you have 3/4 of women who's not getting married. And a lot of them can't figure out why. Oh, there's no good men. Oh, they're passport bros. They're trying to go abroad and they don't know how to handle a strong woman and all this stuff. We have all these excuses as to why it's not happening. A lot of times we don't analyze the attitudes. We don't analyze some of the things that men typically bring to y'all attention. You know what I'm saying? But there's a complaint that all the men are sorry and they're not worthy of us. And, there's this push to be independent. From that list, the 1 in 4 who do get married don't stay married for an extended period of time.
And are you
Okay.
saying that that's 100% the female's fault?
No, I'm not saying it's
Or
100%
that was her
female's fault,
intentions?
but there are exemptions made for women who are in like life or death type situation where a dude is
We're going to
physically assaulting
exclude
you.
the life or death because
We're
that's
going to
the
exclude
obvious.
that.
We're talking about the
But a
things
lot
that
of times women are dissolving their marriages.
because the man is cheating, or because he's
Okay.
constantly lying, or because he don't want to compromise and meet her halfway, or because she feels like she's working her butt off in the house and having to go to work and he's coming home and just sitting and drinking his beer.
Okay.
I,
That
I'm
applies
gonna
for the reason. But then again, you chose to marry a guy like that.
Well, that's what I
But
was
that's
going to say. You said a couple different things,
That's two separate
Mr.
things.
B. But before the camera cut off, I was referencing the Psychology Today article where it says 69% of women dissolve their marriages because they feel
I'm agreeing.
subjugated. They feel it's still a high percentage, but it's because they feel subjugated within their marriage. Just like Honey was just pointing out, overworked, unappreciated is pretty much what this article is saying, right? Then you gave statistics on the fact that in our community, we're not getting married, right? So you have women who are in marriages feeling subjugated. We referenced in the beginning of the conversation that majority of men don't desire to get married or really don't want to get married. And so I think it's a combination of a lot of different issues. It's not just one, uh, as to why marriage is not looked at. And another thing to compile on it, when you were talking about women, some women looking at it as a come up, to me, that's the desperation of wanting to get married. That's desperation because it appears as though the environment is not conducive to marriage. I don't think it's fair to blame either side because I think that out of the lack of men not wanting to get married, you have women deciding to be independent, or you have women who naturally have a biological clock. They want a child. Men don't want to get married, so they have
Okay.
babies. They'll commit to having a child,
Which to me is
and
where
because they're not getting the commitment of marriage, which I think is stupid. But there are some women who go through that and feel that way. Um, I don't know what y'all keep referencing TikTok stuff. I'm not quite sure what is being talked about on TikTok as far as come up stuff. I don't
It's a lot of
subscribe
come up.
to ignorant. I
I
don't
wouldn't say it's
subscribe to if
just
it's ignorant.
TikTok. I
It's
wouldn't
not
just
all social
generalize it
media,
as just like
right?
TikTok. I would just say marketing, social media wise.
Mm.
To go back off of what you said, Amber, like I hear what the both of you guys are saying, and it's I'm trying to think of the best way to say this. Uh, hmm. Yeah, I'm gonna hold my thought. I'm gonna let you guys continue on because I'm trying to figure out the best way to say this.
I really think it's a compiled it's a compilation of things. When you just talked about the statistics from the Black community to the Asian community, I can't help but wonder why our structure is why our marriages and family structure isn't as successful when, like you said,
A
um
certain time.
pre-segregation pre-segregation it was. So what happened morally, right?
So
That this decline just, and I don't want to just hear, oh, the white man this, the white man that, because at this point in time, we can pretty much do what we need to do to make it happen. Opportunity is there. We just have to go do it. But I feel like what happened to where we're not getting this thing together?
Well, I think part of it is in the 60s, the whole no fault divorce thing was introduced.
That don't have anything to do with it. That
Of
wasn't.
course it does.
No. It's a bit deeper than that. It goes back to mindset. It goes back to how we're pinned against each other. It's a lot deeper than the institution of divorce. It's a lot deeper than all of that.
There is
Because
though. Divorce is big business for our. We live in a westernized society, and divorce is big business. I think there's a couple
while
factors.
that is true,
I
divorce
think
wouldn't
there's a
be an
couple factors.
option if our mental was where it need to be. Divorce wouldn't be an
Hmm.
option if we were more careful with who we're getting involved with.
We
Divorce
value
wouldn't
the
be an
things.
option if our values were aligned and we actually were
Okay,
our true authentic selves towards each other.
you
I
guys are
can go
making
on
my point.
about that.
You
So
guys are making my point.
it's
See,
a lot.
going
We're not making your point because your point is that divorce is a come up for women. Divorce is a come
no,
up for everybody.
no, time out. No.
Yes, because it's a lot
Divorce.
of men. It's a lot that divorce does. Divorce is a come up for the courts. It's a come up for the state. It's a come up for the man. It's a come up for the women.
It's not a
Yes,
come up for a
it
man.
is a come up for a man because he
How?
no longer have ties to that female that he really didn't want to be with in the first place.
That's not a come up from him if it means he's gonna lose half of his assets. Okay, I'll give you an example.
Temporarily.
Jeff, not temporarily. Okay,
And
look,
it doesn't always
Dr.
go in
Dre,
the favor of the man. Mary
time
J.
out.
Blige. I can name a
Doc,
few women
time
that
out for a
pays
second.
alimony and support. I know a
No,
doctor
stop
myself.
for 1 second. Dr. Dre, Jeff Bezos, some of these people who are extremely wealthy men. How is divorce a come up from them if they're going to lose half of their assets, billions? We're not talking like chump
Okay,
change.
here's the thing. People act as if when you get married with someone, that person has zero to do with your success. That's not true. There was many times where a lot of these successful men say, without my female, I wouldn't be where I am today.
That's a fair point. But do you believe? I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to ask you a personal question. Kim Kardashian, we're going to use her as an example. Kim Kardashian and Kanye West. Kim Kardashian and Kanye West are both billionaires. Okay? They're both billionaires. All right?
Scott laughing. Uh-oh.
Okay? They're both billionaires. All right? Now, she wanted to be divorced, was openly pretty much clowning this dude in real life on national television with the next man.
Can I
She,
be honest for a second?
time out. Let me
That
finish.
was as deserved, though.
Time out
Can
for a
you use
second.
a situation where the man
No,
was not doing shit,
no.
please?
Time out. No. You can't say as deserved. They're both billionaires. Listen to me. They are both billionaires. She gets a judgment where he has to pay her $2 million a month. That's not the child support stuff. That's for alimony for her.
Did you follow that entire divorce?
Listen to, just hear what I'm saying.
No, because context matter. You
Time
can't
out.
bring up something and not want to
You
discuss
gotta
the
let me
entire
finish
context,
making my
though.
point, and then we'll get into the discussion point.
Okay.
She's getting $2 million a month, 2 whole million, not like chump change. She's already a billionaire. She does not need the money.
Mm-hmm.
She's getting $2 million a month
Mm-hmm.
from a man,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Don't she
Mm-hmm.
got 3 extra kids by him?
You're telling
4.
me
4. My bad.
You're telling me
Mm-hmm.
she cannot survive without
Mm-mm.
$2 million a month
Mm.
from him?
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
How is child support calculated?
It's calculated according to your earnings.
How is alimony calculated?
I think the number of years you've been married and whether or not that person, you know what I mean, actually needs the
Nope.
resources of the other person to live.
That's not how
Absolutely.
it's. No, it's not.
How is it calculated?
Alimony is calculated using where you guys were, what type of life you had, where the income was, how much he contribute to the household. If he was the primary person paying for majority of the living expenses, that is how he's awarded alimony. He's supposed to be, especially in the state of Virginia and other Commonwealth states, it's at least half of the marriage time. He's to still provide that living expense. That's the point of alimony.
See, this is why I say it's a come up, because all that stuff you just said is a bunch of bullshit to me. None of that shit made any sense. All right?
Yo.
You said, I was like, yo, how you trying to, like, what the hell? Like, come on, don't do none of that.
Okay. You hold on. You wanted to
This
use
nigga's a
Kim
billionaire.
Kardashian
You
and
talking about
Kanye,
she's
right?
living away like he the come up. What are we talking
Hold
about?
on. Wait. You want to use Kim Kardashian and Kanye? Let's use them real quick. We understand that she doesn't need the money. She don't need the 2 mil a month.
So
Everybody
all that
knows
stuff
that.
she
She don't
just
need it.
said had
Hold
nothing to do
on. No,
with
no, 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 no. That's not what that ain't what I'm that's not the point I'm gonna make.
Okay.
Kanye West picked the pass around and made her a wife.
Listen to me.
Nope.
Whom he know was
Kanye
famous
West
because of the nigga she dealt with. Go
straight
ahead,
up.
baby. Go ahead.
So therefore,
Kanye West
and he also is and Kanye West
Amber, I
maybe a
can't
lot
hear
of
you.
things. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
So Kanye West may be a lot of things, but stupid about his money is not. He also lives in the state of California, so he was fully aware of what could and could not happen if he were to divorce Kim Kardashian. He still decided to marry her and he had 4 kids with her. Therefore, however that marriage dissolved and whatever he had to pay is his business and his fault.
I
I
can't
don't
even
feel
believe
sorry for
I
him.
heard you say that out
I
loud. That
don't feel
sounds
sorry for him.
so
I
crazy.
don't feel sorry for him. We know that she doesn't need
Listen,
the
this
two.
isn't about feeling sorry for him.
Well, hold on.
This is
Well, hold
actually
on.
making my point. This isn't about feeling sorry for him. This is making
No,
my
no, no. This is the point that I'm making. You're using them and you're saying that she did it as a come up, but I believe that that 2 mil was calculated because in that state, those are the boxes that have to be checked during the divorce proceeding, and that the 2 mil is on the books as a
stop for a
way of
second.
saying that he's contributing. He's
Stop for a second.
contributing to her household in some way
Stop for a second.
because of the marital assets that have to be divided. I
Time
believe
out.
that's why that 2 mil is on the books. I don't think she fought
Time
him for
out.
$2 million
This is
a month. I don't think she did that.
okay. Hear me. No. Let me explain something to you. She can say, I don't want the money. She doesn't have to take that.
Why would she say that?
That's my point. You're making my point. I love that you're making my point. Check this
Now
out.
that they're divorced, she has to have a whole bigger house. Is she supposed to pay for that herself?
She got to have a whole bit. She's worth $2 billion.
She can afford it, but I'm just saying, I don't think she
But
was
that
fighting
makes it
for it.
It's like the mindset is so crazy. This is why I say it's a come up. Because here's the thing. That woman, before Kanye West came into her life, was living her life. She had a TV show. She had all these things. She was not a woman who was without need. What I believe is that a lot of times these systems were put into place to kind of even the playing field. If I'm a guy and I have a woman and I have a little more than she does, and she's devoted a percentage of her life towards helping me amass the wealth that I've gotten, and then I put her out and she has nothing and no work and no means and no way to do that. I believe that system was in play to kind of give that person an equal playing field so that they can actually live. I am not opposed to a system that's set up to give people equal playing field on that front, but I think that that is taking to an extreme. 99% of our population are living on far less money than $2 million a month to live off
I
of.
agree with you.
Okay? So the fact that we're acting as if this lady didn't have $2 million a month, in addition to the billion she already has, that somehow she would be deprived of a lifestyle and
We're not
deprived of her
acting that.
ability to live. This is why I'm making the point that it's a come up for most women than it is for men.
You
I
use
don't
a
care what
one in a
nobody.
million situation to represent
I'm
most
not.
women.
No, that's not a 1 in a million situation. Actually, I'm using that as an example that everyone is aware of and can relate to and would know that actually occurs. But what I'm saying here is that looking at the system and how it's designed, it's not designed to favor the man. This is why I say it's a come up. Marriages, people are no longer getting married anymore because they mainly are thinking about, I want to be the best servant to my spouse. I want to make sure that I carry this man's legacy. I want to honor this man. I want to do right by this man. I want to be there by his bedside if he is, you know what I'm saying, down and out. I want to support him. I want to see a 60, 80-year marriage relationship with this man. Whether he's broke, busted, or disgusted, or he got everything in the world, I'm going to be by his side. I don't believe that mindset still exists as much as it did back in the day. And because I don't believe it still exists is because there are systems in place in westernized world, which is why you have a lot of men now, they're not even entertaining marriage with women.
Hmm.
They're either going abroad because they don't want a woman who thinks in the same westernized way that marriage is thought of here, right? So they'll go abroad, they'll go find a woman outside of the spheres of the westernized way of thinking because they realize a female here views herself like the comment you're making. You're trying to support Kim Kardashian
I never said I
standard of
supported her.
living.
No one said we support
Standard.
that.
No. You said it. You
In the
said
context of what we're talking about right now, she got what she was awarded
she
because
shouldn't have been. Listen, what I'm saying to you
because of
is
their circumstances.
what I'm
That's what
saying
we're
to you
saying. We're not
is
saying that we agree with that.
what I'm saying to you is she shouldn't have been. She shouldn't have been awarded $2 million
Why not? She
But
was
a
you,
his
month,
wife.
and she's already
she
a
would,
billionaire. Now, time out.
okay, but
Stop.
in this
Stop.
state,
So let me tell you. Let me kind of clarify that point. The reason why I'm clarifying that point is because she it's supposed to be, I believe the heart behind that system was, if I live in a mansion and this person, because I kicked them out of my house and I divorced them, I started sleeping with my secretary, I didn't want to be married, I didn't want to be responsible for her, I kicked her out, and we have to share the children. If she's living in a shack in the hood, right, and I'm living in a mansion, there should be some sort of gap, right, to sort of create an equal setting for both of the children to transform from one house to the next. I think that's what the heart was. That could be obtained on a $5,000 a month salary, where people are living currently decently, providing a decent amount of income for those people to actually afford a place. At $2 million a month, $2 million a month on 3 kids, when 99% of the population is living on far less.
Why are we
And this is a
comparing
person who's
99%
already
of the
a
population
billionaire.
to a 1%er?
okay,
This
the,
is why that shit is a come up. I don't even have to say anything else.
Why
All
are
you
we
gotta do is listen to it.
comparing 1%ers
exactly.
to 99% of the world? Why are we comparing them in the sense of what we were originally talking about?
The
You
mindset
brought
is crazy. It's poisoned here. It's real talk.
so you're telling me that it's considered a come up if this man did me wrong and I decided to not ride with him and stick through the pain, the suffering, and all the drama that he's taking me through. that to maintain the lifestyle that he and I created together, because he messed up, I'm supposed to just figure it out?
Can I ask you a question? Did Kim Kardashian create the lifestyle for Kanye West?
If you paid attention to
Did
Kim
she?
Kardashian, they hold up. When they got married, they bought a house 3 times the size of the house that she was originally living in, of which he decided to give her during their divorce, and he bought one across the street from it. So, because he decided that that was the house that he wanted his kids to grow up in, she's now supposed to be responsible for the taxes on that?
No, she's not supposed to be responsible. What would have been reasonable is for them to say, "Hey, we're getting married.
They
We're going to
followed the
sell."
law. The law came up
Stop
with
for a
the number, and
second.
that was that.
Stop for a second. What would have been more responsible would have been, well, wait a minute, he's giving her the house, right? And if she doesn't, if she's for whatever reason doesn't have income from a $2 billion of net worth to pay off the amounts of a couple $1 million mansion that they have, $2 billion, right? If she can't scrape up the money to cover the mortgage of that, right? To do that, right? If she can't do that, she can go back to the other $1 million house she got elsewhere, right? And still sustain for herself, right? Like this, she's not about to actually not live if he's not paying her $2 million. But if it was that much of an issue, the rational thing would have been to say, let's sell the property, and I can just buy a house for $1 million or a little less than $1 million. You can get at $800,000. You can
I
get your
believe,
a 6-7 bedroom house and
but
live.
I
Not in
believe she was
California, not where they
for,
live at.
but I believe she was for selling that house and moving, but he wanted his children to live there. I
Even if
think
that was
Yes,
she
that's
didn't care.
literally
She
what
didn't
happened.
care. Yeah, I don't think she didn't care nothing about that house. He said, and she's still honoring a man she's not with by
you
staying in
feel
the
like
house that she really don't want.
you felt she was honoring him. This is the same woman who didn't even invite
Bec-
him to his own kid's birthday party. She was
well,
honoring him by living in
Because
that
he was
house.
doing
Can you
crazy
he was
things.
doing too much. He was doing too much.
stop for a second? Stop for a
No,
second.
no, you wanted her
You
to have a toxic man around her children while he was going through a mental health crisis. I'm sorry. I do stand with her on that. He was going through some things, and she decided to keep him away from the kids because it was not healthy for them to see that.
This is why it's a come up for women.
How is
So
that a
now,
come up? Because she has to explain things to her children.
so
You
now
think that
the
the
man
kids
who's
wasn't
paying,
asking
so
why
time
their
out.
dad
So
wasn't
now the
there?
man who's paying $2 million a month for her to sustain her lifestyle can't even see his kids.
Can we
now I
start with
think
it's because of his choices?
Oh my God! So you see, you are
So does that
absolutely
not
making a
matter?
point.
Does the reason why they got divorced not matter?
Listen to me. Listen to
Does
me.
the reason the divorce
Listen
happened
to me.
not
A
matter?
broke man who cheats, right?
Oh Lord, I'm
A
mute.
broke man who cheats is no different than a rich man who cheats, right? Period. Right? You think you leaving a rich man who cheat and you need him to pay you $2 million only to get with a broke man who's gonna still cheat on you? What are we talking about? The cheating is not.
what are you talking about? Did he cheat? I don't even think that was the
No,
problem. I
no,
think
because
he was crazy. That's why he a little crazy.
listen to me.
I
At,
don't think it had nothing to do with cheating.
at the end of
She probably would have preferred that he cheated than he was crazy. I would have.
yeah, at
No,
the
it's
end
a
of the
lot. That's a
at the
lot.
end of the day, I think he had his own mental issues. But how many people got
Mhm.
mental issues? They're not allowed to see their children.
Now, hold on. Back up real quick about that, right? Those vows were for better or for worse. So I don't agree that she left him when he needed her the most. That I don't agree with, because you did marry a person who his mother had already passed, and he had shown signs that he was not mentally stable, and that he had been experiencing deep levels of depression and other mental illnesses, and she just not fully equipped to deal with that. I think, to me, I think that she should not have, ended her marriage because he was experiencing something. And then that stress induces it more. So in Kanye's defense, I feel like her keeping the kids from him in a state where stress is inducing his mental state, and she's keeping the kids, it's because of divorce and contention, and he was just flipping out and going off.
That's my point. And then on top of
I'm
it,
never in.
she's sleeping with the next nigga on live television, and he's streaming about and doing all that stuff. So What you're doing is you're adding
But he
further
was sleep. But he was
animals.
sleeping with the other little thotty girl. So who cares? Like
Perfect.
I don't.
that
I
don't
don't.
mean nothing.
When I say,
So
what,
what you both are saying is that the system as it's designed is justified for saying that even though she's a billionaire and he's a billionaire, he should still be entitled to pay her $2 million a month for
they
their
knew
relationship not working out.
they knew the legal things
Stop.
that
I'm
they're,
not.
at the end of
Don't
the
say that.
day,
So you're saying yes, you can
when
get
you
that
get a
stuff.
marriage certificate, isn't that a contract?
Great. I love that you made that point. It is a contract. And that's why most men don't sign up for it. That's why most men are starting to turn away from it.
Which is
Mm-hmm.
fine. We
It
understand
is
that.
not fine.
But what we're talking about, what we're talking about is marriage being a come up for women. Amber said that marriage is a come up for everybody. It was designed to be a come
It's
up
not a
for
come up for
everybody.
everybody. You can't tell me it's
It
How?
is. You're
I just told
saying
you how.
you're saying
We're
that
A
talking
man
about
divorce.
has got to pay.
divorce.
A man
You're
has got to
saying
pay.
divorce. We're talking about marriage.
Marriage.
Divorce. You're saying
Divorce.
divorce is a come
Listen,
up for women. Marriage is a come
Marriage.
up for both.
okay, here's the thing. Here's where I would potentially disagree with you. Okay? Going back to what the value systems are. If marriage, as it was defined in the Bible, is being adhered to according to that standard, then it's mutually beneficial. But if you're talking about secular marriage as it's currently listed today in today's day and age, in today's westernized way, there's no way a marriage is beneficial to a man as much as it is beneficial to a woman. Absolutely.
How?
I just
Elaborate.
I just gave you the distinction because
No, you
in
you
one
gave a generalization. Break
no,
it down.
I'll give you some more detail. In one instance, in my view, marriage as the tradition of marriage, right, is one where two people are essentially outserving or attempting to outserve each other.
Right.
The Bible says that the greatest among you be servants. So if
Mm-hmm.
I'm going into the marriage with the intention to serve you, and I'm willing to work the two jobs, and I'm willing to do what it takes, I'm willing to stand up and take a bullet for you, I'm willing to protect you, I'm willing to do what I need to do to make sure that you're good, right? I'm willing to be by your bedside if things go left. I'm willing to do what needs to be done. Then in that case, the marriage to me is mutual beneficial if you're reciprocating what I'm willing to do as much as you're willing to do the same things in the
Right.
capacity that you are. But if the marriage is one where you think that you just get to stay at home and not necessarily contribute, you don't want to cook, you don't want to clean, you know what I'm saying? You're complaining about the man's whereabouts and what he's doing and this and that. You're more of a nuisance to the man than a help to the man. You know what I'm saying? And your expectation of marriage is that it's supposed to be a partnership more so than it's supposed to be something that we both have duties to serve each other. And if you're not as enthused to serve that man as he is to serve you, then the standards of marriage is not what it was in traditional times than in what it is in current time. So if you're telling me, do I subscribe to modern day marriage as opposed to subscribe to the traditional marriage outlined in the Bible? I would say I subscribe more so to the traditional marriage outlined in the Bible. But I believe there's absolutely a distinction between marriage of today and marriage of yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And that could be shown in the statistics.
So I had a. It was just something that I was thinking about. So, in going into marriage, we're
Mhm.
looking at it from tradition. We're looking at it from a high moral standpoint. We're looking at it from, um, I don't like using the word come up, but coming to bringing the assets together, building wealth for our children, and things of that sort. But then in dissolving marriage, none of those things are considered. It's all contractual. That's when the contracts matter. So beforehand, we're supposed to be looking at love and duty to one another and serving one another and traditional.
When was marriage ever designed to be a contractual arrangement?
I don't think it was ever supposed to be a
So that's what I'm
contractual
saying. This is the
relationship.
shift. This is the shift of God's marriage and modern day marriage. Modern day
Hmm.
marriage has become a contractual arrangement versus God's marriage, which was meant to be a lifetime commitment. Like
Mm-hmm.
that is only broken by death. So now we're
Mm-hmm.
talking about two separate things. We're not even talking about the same thing.
Right.
They're only separate when you choose to keep them separate.
What does that mean?
So when you say, okay, so when you say, oh, you should sign a prenup beforehand, you would ask a woman to sign a prenup, but you believe in the traditional version of marriage. So
No.
you want to, so you wouldn't have, would you
So
or
check
wouldn't
this
you?
out. Let's go back to it.
Okay.
Let's go back to
Uh,
it. See, this is you got to pay attention to the distinction that I'm making. If I'm
okay.
making the distinction that marriage in the traditional form, if I knew that the woman I was marrying was going to uphold the traditional vows of the marriage, there would be no need for me to ask her to sign a prenup because she's not going into it on the grounds of this contractual arrangement. We're going in on the grounds of, hey, my belief system is one of which I am making a lifetime vow to you, and none of that contractual shit mean a goddamn thing to me. You could tell the distinction between the two women. You know how? If that marriage was ever to not work, the woman who went in there for those traditional terms, she's not going to be pressing you and taking your ass to court, trying to get the contract terms upheld.
So do men take
So,
that
no, no,
extra
no.
step
So you
in
see the
figuring that
distinction?
out?
You see the distinction there? You
But
see
I'm
the
saying,
distinction? The woman
why would
who
you
went in
marry
there
somebody
for
you don't trust like
Come
that?
out
I
for
don't
a second.
understand.
Come out for a second. The woman who went in there on some grounds of some contractual shit, her ass is quick to take you to court and say, line 4, paragraph 2, yo ass violate.
50%.
I want
All that.
50%. I'm pressing this and that. Like a woman who's traditionally in there for the right reasons, if y'all was to break up, she's not gonna try to find barriers to you seeing your children. She's not gonna do that. Because she was in there for the right reasons in the first place. Y'all not working out is one thing, but now that woman's not trying to beat you over the head with the terms of a contract, right? Versus a woman who comes into it with the mindset of marriage is this contractual arrangement that we're going to enter in. And if it doesn't work out, I will see you in court. That's two separate things. So now if a man comes to you and says, well, look, sis, I'm now operating in an environment where marriage is not what it used to be in my grandparents' age. So now going into this arrangement, if me and you do decide to make that decision and join together in matrimony, then I need to make sure that I take the contractual steps to protect my interest. That's a whole different discussion than what it was 50 years ago, because nobody was having to think to myself, damn, this shit could really fuck me. This decision I'm about to make could really jam me up. And we're in an age right now today in modern day marriage where men have to now go into making a commitment into a relationship, thinking, okay, what precautionary measures do I need to take in the event that this relationship does not work out? And what I'm saying to you is the traditional forms of marriage, a lot of people was not coming into it with that in as a question in their mind.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that now men have to think about that tells you that modern day marriage is something totally different and outside of the traditional forms of marriage that is really kind of encouraged in religious belief systems.
So, question. Going
Mm-hmm.
back to my original stance, doesn't that go back to the vetting process and
Absolutely.
who
It
you
goes.
dealing with and
It
all
goes
of
to.
that?
It
So
goes
it
to
still
that.
makes it a
It,
choice. And
it
would you
makes it a
say
choice. But here's
it,
what I'm saying to you: in it being a choice, you see, culture plays a part. Like I'll give you an example. I know some people who are Ethiopian in nature, and they're very culturally strict people when it comes to religion. Their community shuns them. Like there's a process by which they really uphold that culture. And if you take a look into Middle Eastern communities as well, very strong cultural like norms, like even in Indian communities, like you will be casted out if you misrepresent your family in that marriage. Like not only are you losing your husband, but you bringing shame to your family in that community will result in them disowning you, disassociating with you,
Mm-hmm.
because their culture says we conduct ourselves this way. In
Mm-hmm.
our westernized world, especially amongst the black community, okay, our culture seems to be not so strict and not so demanding when it comes to how we behave within marriage.
I agree because most people aren't getting married. So that who's holding up? Who is holding anyone accountable?
Look at this.
Who
The
is
age.
who's been married? Who's been married 20 years, and then you got a couple that's been married 2 or 3 years going through something, and that couple that's been married 20 years is like, hey, this is just a rough patch, or y'all can make it through this. What That's few and far between at this point, looking at the numbers that you said earlier. So I think the people like Sky mentioned, she, meeting people that's been married 40 years, she did a great thing by asking, good questions and getting some jewels from them because that's such a rare thing to see. Who do we have to impart that wisdom on the gentleman you speak of now who they're unsure about getting married, or they're scared that a woman is only want them for their money and don't really love them, and nobody trusts anybody nowadays. We talk about that all the time.
Is
Nobody
my
trusts
point.
anybody.
The reason.
Another thing too, and I'm gonna say this is kind of not related but kind of related. So I stumbled across these loyalty test things on YouTube. Ain't nobody loyal. These people terrible out here. So I understand the not trusting thing. I mean, you would think the type of, and they ask basic questions, and their people fold. A best friend will call and pretend, hey, let's link behind my best friend back, and the dude be like, what's up? Or vice versa. I'm like, these people out here they disrespectful and don't care about nothing.
It
So
goes back to what we're talking about.
I understand why they don't trust, but I don't understand. My thing is, what happened to us morally that we cannot get it together, because that's a moral issue. Cheating and character and integrity, that's a morality problem.
I love the conversation because that morality goes back to the whole secular way of living. See,
Mm,
once you start taking Bibles out of the school and people are not subscribing to God and allowing God to be at the center of their relationship, and they're not framing their relationship on the grounds of those things, and we're so liberal minded and we're allowing so many people to infiltrate our minds about how we should think and value each other, right? Everyone wants to use, the black community as the stepping stone to whatever the civil rights movement thing they want to advocate for. And in the interim, we stand for nothing, and our communities are
mm,
hurt and fractured as a result of it, right? And so
mm-hmm,
we don't stand behind our cultural norms. Look at the Asian community. A lot of Asian people live in westernized society, but they do not forego their cultural norms, even though they live
yeah,
in America with us.
mm-hmm,
Their divorce rates aren't as high as ours
mm-hmm.
because there's still some cultural norms that keeps them intact. That they're not just gonna move as reckless as the rest of us move, but for whatever reason we move. Like I don't see a lot of these rifts in the community as something that you see within the Asian community.
One thing that I do know about Asian culture is that they will divorce, but it'll be a quiet thing, and it's still very shamed. They are very shamed if they do so, right? But
Culture.
one thing that I know about the people who endure their marriage or the rough patches in their marriage from the Asian culture, they look at it's their duty. So they may not be happy in this moment or this time, but they understand that it's my duty to be here, and this is
That's
what
my
I'm
point.
going to do. Whether I'm not happy right now, this will pass, but
You're making
my
a
duty has said this is what I'm going to be. I really would like some solutions, you know, a solution based conversation, because
well,
I
this is
think that this can be fixed and people can be healed, but people have to see it working in
I,
order to believe that it's possible.
I feel like part of the problem is like I'm having a conversation with you guys, And I can't even get any consensus that it's somewhat of a come up more so for the women than it is for the men. How can we even create a solution if we can't even acknowledge that that problem exists?
Because
Because you
Y'all
go
are
ahead,
trying
Lauren.
to justify that a
go
woman
ahead,
who's a
Amber.
billionaire, y'all are trying to justify that a woman who's
But
a billionaire needs
pause.
two
You
additional
keep
million
you're
dollars a month from
still
a nigga who's
stop
a billionaire
using a
too.
1 in a million situation. You're
It
using
isn't.
the one percenters to represent 99% of the world. Honestly, when you really women as a whole, if we're going to talk about us, black people,
Mm-hmm.
our culture, yes, there are some people who are nasty. It's some people who are trifling.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just gonna get real raunchy with the words. Um, that do things out of spite. But literally, I out of the many women, and I work with seniors, I talk to people over the age of 55 every day. I listen to these people talking. Women don't get married to get divorced.
Mm.
I literally have never met a female who get married to get divorced. Majority of them don't really think about divorce until so much stuff has compiled that they just can't take it anymore.
So I just want to interject that one point. So if so much stuff has compiled, they feel like they can't take it anymore. Shouldn't it be kind of within them to communicate that?
I can hear you.
The only reason why I say that is because I will use my own parents as an example. My parents have been married for now going on 31 years. And I will be honest and be upfront and say they dealt with some infidelity issues. And I was young at the time when I found out. But I mean, I asked my mom, and she was like, "You'd be surprised. I mean, it says in the Bible that you're supposed to have many counselors. Luckily, my mom had many counselors. And to be completely honest with you, her mother was not one of those counselors because her mother, my grandmother, was telling her something completely different, which was walk away, leave your husband. You don't have to deal with that anymore, Robin. This and the third, blah, blah, blah. This is like what, year 15 that they were dealing with this. And my mother decided to listen to other women who have had long, successful marriages. And they said, you know what? This is going to be this is a rough patch right now. You're dealing with this. I understand this is tough. Keep in mind what your vows were for. And it sounds crazy when I say that, but I can tell you, looking at my parents, I thank God that I have examples like them. And this is not like excusing abuse or anything like that, because if you are dealing with abuse, then yeah, you do need to, you know, vacate. But if you're dealing with something that's like that you can work through, I say fight for it. That's it.
But the question is, Scott, in light of that point, do you believe a lot of women, the majority of women who are getting divorced, of the 1 in 4, the 80% who initiate their marriage, do you believe they're fighting for their marriage by initiating a no fault divorce? You believe they're fighting for their marriage? The majority?
I would say majority of them are not fighting for their marriage.
Thank you.
I would say out of majority of them, no, but
Why would they?
I will say out of the portion of the majority, there probably have been women, like Honey was saying, who have tried counseling, who have tried other methods, who
I don't want
have
to
tried
discount them.
A, B, C, and D, and it has not worked. But I feel like that's a very small percentage out
Thank
of the
you.
majority
I
of what the
appreciate that.
divorces have been.
And I'm
So
not talking in absolute. To your point, Scott, I'm not talking absolute. I'm not saying all. Please don't take any of my comments as this applies across the board for all women. That's not the case. But if we read the numbers, and it's like 30 something percent compared to 58% on the high end, right? Those are the two ends of the spectrum, 30 something percent. And then of the 1 of 4 black women who do get married, 80% of them are initiating divorces. That's
Well,
not,
think about this.
those numbers are not indicating that the majority of them are attempting to fight for their marriage to
But
sustain
think
them.
of
They
but think
they
about
don't.
this too. You're saying fight, right? You're saying fight for your marriage. And the one thing that I've learned from raising my children now is they don't teach the kids to fight when it comes to conflict. They teach the kids to walk away. A lot of people are not taught really good communication and conflict resolution skills as is. If something is too stressful or inconvenient, people leave and they let stuff go. So I'd have to say I agree with, maybe they just don't know how to fight.
You
You
guys
know
are
what I'm
making,
saying? They don't know
they
how.
don't
They
know
don't
how to
know
fight.
how to,
Right.
because something is difficult, very difficult. My parents this year would be 31 years of marriage for my mom and my stepdad, and then 27 years for my dad and my stepmom. And I have seen them literally go through hell, things that I would leave for, deal breakers for me that I would be walking out the door, but both relationships are still intact. And the
Making my
one thing the one thing that I can say, that because there's just some dynamics that I guess I'll never understand because I'm not in it. But the one thing that I do commend them for is that even after they argue and they go off on each other or they do whatever it is that they're doing, they come home and they're with each other. They have already said what it is. We can do whatever, but you're my person and I'm your person, and
making my point.
we,
See, what
we're
I'm
not we're
saying to
not
you is
doing
you're
nothing
referring
else.
to your mother and your stepdad,
Yeah,
somebody from a
yeah.
prior generation, and they're
Mm,
not a lot. Those are not, they're probably more rare as people who
mm,
chose to stay together than they are one
yeah.
generation over. So see what I'm,
I would have got divorced. If I had to go through what them two went through, I would have got divorced.
you're making my point.
Period.
This
And
is
So
I'm
what
just
I'm
being
saying to you.
real.
can I
We've
ask you a
got,
I'm being
question,
real.
Amber? I'm
Mhm.
sorry not to interrupt you.
Mhm.
They came together as a team and decided to work on it, right?
Mhm. Yes.
It has to be a team effort. You can't just say how many women decide to fight for their relationship.
it
Mhm.
is a team
A
effort.
lot in this conversation has been all about women, 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 leaving out the fact that it takes two to make the relationship work.
Right.
Absolutely.
All the women that I know that have gotten married, that if their partner is meeting them halfway, depending on whatever's going on, matter of fact, I can use
Mhm.
my own blood sister, which I just left her house. They're working on their relationship as a team. Even though, like Amber said, some of the stuff they going through, I would have been out. Gotta go. Deal
Yes.
breakers.
Mhm.
So we can't say marriage is a come up for women. It's a come up for everybody, like Amber said. We have to really stop putting it on one person when it comes to relationships. I feel like that would be one of the biggest solutions that we can come to help combat the whole divorce factor, and say if we work together as a team, as a union, like it's supposed to be, it might last a little longer,
Mhm.
Yeah,
if not forever.
but let me ask you a question. Ask yourself. I could understand that argument if the rate of divorce was being initiated at 50-50 split, where it's half the man and half the woman. I can understand you making that argument. But if of the people who are married, 80% of it is being initiated by women, you can't make the argument that the
For men,
women are more willing to work on it than the men are when they're
you
the
already
ones
admitted
initiating
that
it.
for men it's cheaper to keep her. Number one, we got that argument,
Mhm.
right? You already admitted that argument. Number two, most women, and I'm speaking from the people that I know, not the Kim Kardashians and all that craziness,
Yeah.
they've already tried. It's not like you can't say, oh, we've been married for 3 years and I just woke up one day and was like, I'm gonna divorce my husband today.
I love, listen,
It's
while
Mhm.
a
you're
lot
making,
of it's a lot of quiet quitting, as they say right now,
yeah, you
that
check out.
happens in
Mhm.
relationships.
Yeah, you
And it
check
goes
out.
back to, if everybody is working together, then
Mhm.
they might be able to fix it. If not, they
Yeah.
decide together that it's not working.
Mhm.
Yeah, I believe you can check out in a
So
relationship, but you
a lot
guys,
of
just
men
in this
check out
conversation,
all the time.
that's true. But just in this conversation that we're having right now, just in this conversation we're having right now, both of you guys have cited a relationship where two people are, or two sets of people are working on their marriage, and y'all both, being women of today's age, said, I would have been left had,
Absolutely.
had I been in that
Straight up.
situation. So pay attention to
Straight
me.
up.
Same
Mhm.
issues, but your
Mm.
tolerance to overcome that situation is less than theirs. And this is the point that I'm
Right.
trying to draw your attention to.
Well,
Marriage today doesn't mean the same to you today that it meant to the people of past times, because those people of past times are like, yes, we got issues, yes, it looked crazy to anybody else, but we're gonna work through it. And you guys are like, oh, I would never work through it. See, there's a mindset shift. There's a
it's
mindset
it's
shift
deeper
in your
than that.
mind
It's
that
deeper than
says,
that.
I'm not even going to put up with half of the stuff that I'm seeing them put up with. So, what I'm saying to you is your value for remaining in a relationship, right, is not the same as theirs is. Because in your
Okay,
mind,
this
you're
is
like,
Not
I don't
a
have to be in
relationship.
that.
You can't say a relationship.
yeah.
In the
Mm.
sense of my situation, what
Y'all
they're
have
going
two
through,
separate situations that y'all both cited. She doesn't know your
agreed.
situation. You don't know
And
her parents' situation. But y'all both
agreed.
said in your own right, y'all both women of equal age, right? Y'all both said in your own right, if I had to deal with whatever it is that your family members are dealing with, I would have been out a long time ago, right? So what that's showing
Reason
to me
being,
as a man, let me just finish the statement and then
mhm,
you got the floor. What that's showing to me as a man is that your women, I believe that in today's day and age, women are less willing to fight for their marriage like women of yesterday used to. And the reason why is because women of yesterday maybe did not feel like they needed to stick in that relationship because opportunities was limited for them. So based on that mindset, right, they felt like my survival is kind of tied to this man, so therefore I am going to do more to stay in this relationship because I partially need him. And in today's mindset, y'all believe that, hey, I can just be independent and I don't necessarily need him, and you would rather take the journey on your own, and in so doing, you end up taking on the burdens on your own, right? And so now you have a less tolerance to even work things out. These aren't things that these were people who've been, y'all both are citing these people as
Right.
something as
But
commendable that they were able to keep their marriage intact,
I never said it
even
was
though there's
commendable.
problems, not necessarily you, but Amber
That's fine.
said that, even though there's problems, right, in the relationship, you're kind of looking at them admirably saying, well, they've been together for 30 some odd years, and you're saying it in a way as if you're proud. But then in the same breath, you're saying, I could never, what they had to overcome, I in my mindset as of today would have never stuck around for stuff like that, right? So
right.
to,
And so what in the in I get where you're going when you say it's kind of it's kind of a contradiction to say that.
yeah,
However, without telling the people business, there are some things that, let's just say one person is at fault or something. The statistics that I referenced said that women feel that they're subjugated to men or not loved. The one thing that I can say is that I have watched my stepdad over love my mother all these years. So him loving her has never been a question. Him over loving her has never been a question. He shower her with gifts every week. He does anything she wants. He gives it to her. He is very attentive to her. He knows her better than anybody else. Like, he really loves her. So I understand why she would stay with him during their hard times. I completely get it, because it's very rare to find someone who really loves you and only you, and doesn't want anyone else or even entertain others. But to me, just the level, that's why every relationship is different, because the level of things that I've seen them experience, I know me, and I know that I wouldn't have been able to come out of that unscathed and saying, okay, let's fix it. On the flip side of that, I've experienced my own divorce, and I did try and fight for it, even when something was completely against my own moral merit. And I said, I'd do this, I'd fix it, I'd work on it. And then it just got too much. And I was like, you know what? I'm good. I'm good on all y'all. You know what I'm saying? So I see it from both sides. So yeah, I am going to commend people who can get past that threshold of stress and the the worst part of the for better or for worse, I am going to commend them because I've proven to myself that I have a limit. That I have a limit, and I would challenge myself to see if I could work past that in the future. But I have a limit. So the people who don't, and the people who decide that no matter what they're going through, they're going to stick their marriage out and they're going to work on things. I commend them for that. And I don't want to say I'm so westernized. I'm just going to throw my, relationship away. I never had that mindset because again, just like Honey said, nobody gets married to get a divorce. Who wants to go through that? It's one of the worst experiences you could ever have. Why would you want to go through that? And when you pick somebody to be with for forever, the one thing that I can say about divorce is that once you've decided that you're going to get a divorce, your whole life shatters. You have literally stopped thinking beyond that person because that's the person that you're supposed to be with forever, forever. And so now time has come back to you like, okay, well, this is not the trajectory that I thought I was going in. So now what am I going to do? You're almost lost all over again. Who really wants to go through that? I don't see the come up in that at all. I don't see any type of come up in divorce when you are emotionally distraught, drained, hurt. I don't see where it's a come up at all when it
So,
comes to
quick
divorce.
question just to ask Amber. So, if it's not seen as a come up, then why is it still 80%? Like, that to me is not, as people say, the math ain't mathin'. It doesn't make sense to me that if we know that we're going to be, when it's the word divorce, like when you break down the word, it means to sever. And when you're severing something, there is going to be ugly on both sides. And making the the intentional choice to do that or to bring about that process, I, that to me it doesn't make sense, and to me it speaks more about that person than, I mean, like I said, this is negating this is negating the percentage of, like, abuse and all that other stuff. We're talking about the people that are like, yo, I'm just unhappy and I don't even like the way you breathe.
Mm.
So, question: how long are you supposed to be okay with being unhappy with a person who don't want to meet you halfway?
I think
Forever.
again, I think it goes with, what you were saying, honey.
Forever.
Is your vetting process. It's your vetting process. It's 100% your
I,
vetting
I
For better
don't
or
process.
for worse, for
And then
you
until
it's
can't
death
also
do
vet
you part.
understanding,
you
and
Being
can't vet
it's
unhappy,
also, if I can finish this point, it's also understanding that you're the person that you get. Not every human comes as a perfect package. You're going to get flaws because no human is perfect. And unfortunately, you have a lot of delusional women out here today that think that their men is supposed to become pre-packaged at 6'4" with six-pack abs. He's supposed to be athletic. He's supposed to be 1,000%, making the money and this, that, and the third, when that's literally maybe it's less than 3%. I'm not even talking about the percentage of Black men that are incarcerated or that are dead because of a whole bunch of
mm,
other things that have happened on this planet. We're not even talking about that. We're talking about a
mm,
huge percentage of women that are asking for the qualifications of less than 3%.
mm.
And do like, and so that then, it's all like, and it's also bringing in another statistic of, I'm just, this may offend some people when I say this. Well, then why are these Black men out here, just impregnating people and walking away? It's not majority of Black men. The pookies that are impregnating everybody is a very, very small percentage, and it's the same percentage of men that are impregnating a lot of people. So again, to your point, honey, and to your point, Amber, it's the vetting process on both sides. But if we're talking about women, 80% of women initiating the divorces, vetting process.
Both.
I don't think you can adequately vet your marriage what for worse looks like. I think you can do that. I really don't. I think life hits you
My point is,
hard,
you got to
and
be
it's
willing to ride that out.
that is what I was. That was the point I
That's
was
the
just
whole
about to make.
traditional
You
marriage
can't. You
versus.
can't. You can't predict anything that happens. Like
So are you saying
it's.
traditional marriage is supposed to be hell?
I believe that you can't predict anything in marriage, but I feel like there needs to be, you and B talked about this on a previous podcast that you guys had. There needs to be a questions about motives, intentions. There needs to be
Mhm.
hard questions about uncomfortable truths. We need to start asking
Mhm.
people, what are your viewpoints? Are
Absolutely.
you looking for a traditional marriage? What are your viewpoints on cheating? What do you consider cheating? If I'm supposed to be the person that is your spouse, what do you feel my role is as far as this collective that we're supposed to be coming together on? How do you feel about the role of finances? Who should give you what? Who should deal with what? I feel like these questions need to be had then. Damn girl, he look good. He's 6'5". He got the money. There needs to be more conversations than what is appealing to eye and lust. And I feel like when
Agreed.
people don't have those conversations, they set themselves up for failure. So again, if 80% of people, if 80% of one gender, women, are initiating the divorce, who is either not guiding them, who is not helping them, who some here to where 80% is initiating
Not.
severance of families.
Mhm.
So where are we supposed to go?
One thing that I think to piggyback off what you're saying, Sky, is what I'm learning is that how do we treat people when we're mad at them? That's something that I don't think that's something that I don't think we consider when we're courting or vetting the a person of interest. That's something that I never thought about until recently. When you are actually mad at a person, how do you treat them? That is a big indication of what your relationship will look like when the worst happens, right? If you decide to get married or whatever. So maybe getting into the practice of not leaving immediately when you get upset or throwing away your relationship because like you said, people aren't perfect. You're not going to find a perfect person um out there.
But I feel like
So
that's conversation that has to happen amongst women.
It's not just women, because men need to have that conversation as well. Because it's when you're in a
See,
relationship, it's two of you. I
I
can't talk to
agree. But
myself.
listen to what I'm saying, boo. At the end of the day, if we were splitting the relationship at an equal rate, then I can understand us saying, well, we got to speak to both sides. Yes, conversations have to be had with men too. A man always has to be accountable because the buck stops with
So
him.
I have a
But at
question.
the end of the day, if a woman says, listen, you know what? I am not um, willing to do this any longer. I am essentially not happy and I'm willing to break it off. And that happens at a rate of 80%. And this goes back to the point that Scott's making. There's a disparity between who's initiating the breakups.
Well, my question is, we're
So
only
that
focusing on the
suggestion that was
aspect.
that suggestion that was made by Amber is actually a great point that I think happens a lot in the community. Now, you're talking to a man who's got 5 sisters. You know what I mean? I have a lot of female friends. You know, we've had a lot of conversations around these type of things. And I have friends who call me and ask me for relationship advice. And they'll get emotional. They'll get in their bags of emotion about a man they're dealing with. And it'll be a small matter. They'll block the man, run, and do all this stuff. And it's like, you're just being emotional right now. This issue is not something that should sabotage your whole relationship with this man just because you're having an emotional moment. And a lot of times I have to talk my female friends off the ledge. Like, really? Like, you really about to throw a whole relationship away because the guy walked by you because he was having a moment and he didn't say anything to you? You're gonna throw your whole relationship away for that? And for her, she's stuck on it. Like, yeah, that dude don't deserve me, blah blah blah, because she was emotionally hurt by it. And a lot of times, we're not teaching y'all how to handle. How do I deal with my emotions when I'm hurt? Yes, on both sides, that conversation needs to be had. But more so amongst yourselves, because 80% of you are walking away from your relationships solely on the fact that you're hurt about something. And we're not even saying that you took the steps to at least address the situation before you walked away. Like, you'll see a tendency that a lot of women have is, if a guy does something they don't like, they'll block him. That's great, because that's an immediate gratification. You don't get to speak to that man, but you still didn't educate that man on what he did that offended you so much that you would feel moved to block him. To me, that's not like a mature way of dealing with that matter. You could have had a conversation and said, okay, here's the issues that I am dealing with you, and this is what I've come to, and these are the measures that I intend to take if this doesn't get addressed. It's called setting a boundary and giving the person an opportunity to address your concern, and then allowing that person to work through that. And if they don't, then you take the measure. But what happens on impulse is a lot of women will get upset about something, right, that somebody did, said, whatever, and immediately I block him. And then they are moving on to the next thing with no proper closure. And then you create this habit of constantly running away from your problems rather than dealing with your problems. And then you get into the next relationship, you do the same exact thing. In the next relationship, you're doing the same exact thing. It's no wonder that 80% are now, amongst coming across a problem, they're disconnecting, because you built a habit of dealing with your problems like that. And that's not to say that your problem couldn't have been solved with the man. It's just to say you didn't have the tolerance to deal with it anymore, right? So this is what we're talking about as part of the conversation as a whole. If 1 in 4 of y'all are getting married and then you're quick to walk away from your marriage, it further reduces the number of married people. And then it creates an opportunity where more and more people are being brought into a single mother household or a single member household. And that puts you at a disadvantage statistically for your children's future and for your future, because things are getting more expensive. Like, there's more sickness in the world. Like, being alone isn't what God's intentions are for us. We're supposed to be able to cohabitate and to live with each other. And now we're choosing not to. And then it's all fun and games while you're still young and you can get through it and you can go and work 3-4 jobs and do all that. But don't let COVID hit and you can't go outside and you can't do certain things. You know what I'm saying? And you are at your bedside, especially if you don't have a really good family support system that's going to hold you down. Then you find yourself in a situation where there's a lot of elderly women who are alone. They don't have anybody. If they fall, it could be days before anybody even knows what's going on. Right? I don't believe that that's what God's heart was when he created the institution of marriage. We're supposed to cover each other. This is not me saying men should just, completely be irresponsible, but we're clearly saying that in terms of the people who do get together, the majority of the breakups are initiated by one group exponentially higher than the other group initiates those things, 4 times more so. At some point, women amongst yourselves, like Sky had some great points that she made. Amber had some great points that she made. You even had some good points. But the conversation in the girl circles, in the chat room, needs to be, sis, are you fighting for your marriage? Or are we creating a thing where we just kind of pat each other on the back and say, walk away, like run, block, do whatever, you know what I'm saying? And then now, many years later, you guys are without your companion. And you 40, 50 years old, going after the same man on a dating site that your daughters are going for.
Terrible.
I mean, that's the reality of the situation right now. You feel what I'm saying? Because we're not proving that we can work together and work through our issues. So it is a conversation to be had. Now, obviously, I appreciate all you guys for the conversation and your input. I think we're nearing our little 2-hour limit here, but I'm just saying it's food for thought. It's a conversation that I think we need to start having in our circles. This is not something that's saying women are to be blamed for every reason that problems occur in relationship, and therefore they are the problem. This is not what I'm saying. I'm not making a blanket statement, making women solely the problem. What I am saying, though, is there is something to be said about the fact that there's 4 times the breakups being initiated by one group, right? And so if that's happening, when we bring up a point like, well, women aren't taught how to deal with their emotions when it comes to these things, in part because they're not necessarily seeing a household model for them. If you're a young woman who grew up in a single parent household, you didn't see your mother work through a relationship with a man. So why should you think you would have to do that? How she dealt with it, she kicked him out and moved on to the next one. So of course you're going to repeat the behavior. Generally, that's what takes place. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just saying, for us to do better, we got to know better, and we got to at least challenge some of the mindset, because nobody's having a conversation on this level, right? It's one, we got to acknowledge that it is a problem, that there's just, there's just a higher rate of the breakups being initiated by one group. Yes, women have legitimate reasons to break up their relationships. Absolutely. I'm not saying every woman should sacrifice their life and go home to a man who's whooping your tail and beating you and putting you in something that's detrimental to you like that. I would not, as a man who's got sisters, I have daughters, I would not subject a woman to that. I'm not advocating for that. But I am saying that, some of these relationships are salvageable. They didn't necessarily have to break. There could have been some things worked out. And I think there's a number of factors in play. One being that there's systems that incentivizes you guys breaking up from that man more so than incentivizes you staying in a relationship with that man. And then there's a lot of things that happens as a result of it. So that was my last piece. I'm going to give everybody an opportunity to give their parting words before we wrap up. So go ahead, honey. You got it. Your final thoughts before we wrap this up.
I guess my final thoughts is I agree with majority of what you said. Um, the only part that I don't 100% like is the fact that we're focusing on the fact that women are filing for divorce and not how many divorces are caused by women. Um, because ultimately, like I said multiple times tonight, I don't know any women who get married to get divorced. And I think that, like Amber said, we should be focusing on solutions. And I think the solution would be proper vetting in the beginning. I definitely love the paying attention to how you treat me when you're mad and you're angry. That is a very important one. And communication. It takes two to make it all work. You got to be willing to talk to me. You got to be willing to hear me out. You got to be willing to do this. And I got to be willing to do the same thing. If you two don't match on that level, the relationship is never going to work.
Absolutely.
So I would say that I cannot say that divorce is a come up for women, because I don't feel like majority of them get married to get divorced. Does it help some of them? Absolutely. But like you said, the system was developed to even the playing fields, to keep their lifestyles where it was when they were a two-person household. Now, do some people take advantage of it? Absolutely. But can we say that they're 100% the majority? No. The same way we can't say that all Black fathers walk out.
Not 100% the majority, just the majority.
It's not the majority.
Okay.
There are a lot of women who will say, I leave with what I came with. I don't want none of the craziness. I don't want the drama. I don't even want to go to court. Can we do this through mediation? It happens. So all that into play, it just worries me that the burden is always put on the female. We're supposed to just ride with the man no matter what he put us through, and just fight through it and fight through it and fight through it no matter how it makes us feel. That's the only worry I have with this conversation, because that sounds like where it's going, basically, that we're supposed to just put up with it and ride with it no matter how we feel. And I'll just end it there.
Okay, Amber, and then we'll leave the final word with Sky.
Um, I guess my final thoughts on this topic. I think we should figure out why morally our community is so far. The numbers are so low with marriage, and the divorce rate is so high. I think that there's enough information out there at this point where we could be helping one another. Um, get better at communicating and be better at doing things collectively as a team and not feeling like if I go into this situation, this person is going to screw me. I know before I referenced the loyalty test things that I literally stumbled across it and got a little addicted to it, because it was astonishing to me how non-traditional, and most of these people are young. And so if the young people are our future, this is the mindset that they're carrying with them. Most of them are spring breakers and people out having a good time, and it appears as though none of them have a significant moral ground, and in that it leads me to think, well, who raised them? That was my next question. Who raised them to feel this way or treat other people this way that you say that you love or are in a relationship with? So um and then that leads me to think some more to the elders. Well, what examples are there? Who's here, who's still here, that can impart that kind of wisdom to those younger and who may need it, um to ensure that this doesn't become, these numbers don't get any less. I don't. I think the law allows for marriage to essentially. I guess I kind of agree where you say it can be a come up only because the law can be manipulated. I don't think its an initial intention was for that to be the case, but law is specifically there so it can be manipulated. So, in reference to Dr. Dre, I meant to say it earlier, but his wife specifically knew how to manipulate the law and get what she did not. She was not with him when he made all of those all of that money and made those deals and all of those things. But she was able to come up off of that, asking for millions of dollars in entertainment a month, and you have like two little kids. Who does that? That I thought that was ridiculous. However, in her case, I would say, yeah, she was a come up. But in Kim Kardashian's um, place, I think that was just them dividing marital assets in a box that needed to be checked because she really didn't need it. And I just don't think that she said, you know what, I don't want it. I think she was just over it, sign it, whatever y'all people y'all lawyers suggest, I'll sign it. She just wanted the things to be done. I know you don't like that. You're over there shaking your head, but that's how I think that ended. But overall, I think that we should be having more solution based conversations. I think we have exhausted ad nauseum at this point what the problems are, and solutions are there, and we should be focused on that.
All right, Scott, to you the last word.
Um, Well, I appreciate both you ladies for your viewpoints. Definitely heard some good information and learned a couple of things as far as like thought process where you guys are. I would say as far as ending arguments, as far as does divorces that have come up, I would still stand on the viewpoint that it is a come up systematically. Now, socially, it may not be a come up, but we don't have the time to go into that. Um, and I think it also is a thing of, Amber, as you were saying, as far as finding solutions, I think it's a thing of making sure, it's not really making sure, but it's also talking to people who are actually looking for the solutions, not just broadcasting solutions to a brick wall. You have to have people that are actually willing to listen and actually willing to apply. I think that
Mm-hmm.
makes the biggest difference. And I think also it makes a big difference is, as Honey stated earlier in our discussion, is your vetting process. You need to check intentions, motives, association. Those are the biggest things. What's your mindset? Where are your values? Where are your morals? If those things do not, or if those things are not combining, then I feel like you need to take the necessary precautions to create boundaries, and you need to have healthy boundaries in your relationship. And I feel like if you have healthy boundaries in the beginning of your vetting process, then I feel like that narrows down I feel like that would narrow down the rate of divorce with properly vetting. But overall, um, yeah, I feel like the institution of marriage has changed. And I would say that it has not really changed for the benefit. Do I feel like it could change for the benefit? Depending on, again, where people morally stand, it could. But as of the way that things are going right now, no. But I feel like it could be better in the end. That's it.
So we're wrapping this up, but let me kind of get that. So do you feel, Scott, that it is a come up for women that benefits women more than it benefits men, or do you feel like it's equal? Because from Honey's standpoint, she's saying she doesn't feel it's a come up. I'm saying I do feel it's somewhat of a come up. You know what I mean? In today's
I,
days marriage, the
I
contract
will, yeah.
version of it. Would you say it's more, it isn't a come up, or it is a come up?
I would say systematically, it's a come up. Socially, it's not a come up for women. It's not a come up for women socially to be divorced. And we don't have time to go into that discussion, although there are some things in place that try to make it socially celebrated, hence the divorce parties and all that other stuff that people have. But systematically, it's definitely a come up. I feel like it's a come up for women. I definitely agree with that. But socially, I don't feel like it's beneficial to women at all.
Okay, and Amber, your view was that it is a come up, or it's not a come up.
I think it's a come up for people who can manipulate the law. I do think so. But I don't think that it initially was a come up, because when you get a divorce, if you're speaking to the people that have a lot of money, it might be a come up, but most people don't have a whole lot of money. So what is the come up? And most normal people that get divorced aren't getting alimony. Child support is probably the most you can get,
From the
from
from that
any,
standpoint.
you
But
know.
my question is from a financial standpoint, from a access to your children's standpoint, who loses more, the man or the woman?
Man,
Is that like, so the man loses more? So in that sense, if the man loses more, is it to his benefit to sign this contract, where if it does not work out, he will stand to lose more? That's what I mean by come up.
So
It's
that's something that he
any
has to weigh before he says he's doing it.
That's true. But my question to you is, if we're viewing marriage, we made the distinction that marriage today is more contractual than it is, rooted in values and traditional terms, right? And that's why, some people are talking prenups and things of that nature. But because that's the case, I think that that's what the distinction needed to be. I appreciate you all. I know we've exhausted this point tonight. I think it was a great discussion. I think there'll be a lot more discussion to have on this topic. I am going to open it up when I actually put this on. I will open up, a survey and take a survey so that as our listeners listen in, they can kind of give their feedback and tell us, well, what their viewpoints are. And, I would encourage you guys to, again, put into practice some of the things we talked about as potential solutions, talking, defining things up front, and finding and vetting properly a person that holds your values and values marriage the way you value it. So, ladies, thank you very much. And I appreciate you all. All right. Signing off. Blessings.